welcome back to Seeds. I am Seeds. Today's video is going to be focusing on my pain. I want to say it's not going to be covering everything by any means, just because there's so much to talk about. There's just so many different elements throughout my life. And this is really the birthplace of really when my depression was born, so to speak. And that was with the death of my twin brother. So I just want to kind of go over how that all laid out, just kind of the build up to it, and then also just kind of how the immediate effects and details of that pain. So yeah, this is going to be a little difficult. There might be times where I seem a little robotic, or maybe I get emotional. The robotic part would just be if I've had a bad habit since my brother was killed of hiding my emotion, just as a defense mechanism of not wanting to be vulnerable, as I don't think most people do. But yeah, so I'll just get into that day. So this took place back in I say the summer of 2005, when my twin brother, serving the Marine Corps, was deployed to Iraq. And how this all started developing was before my brother was actually deployed. There was one night I was out at a party with him, actually, and I broke down to him because it had been in the back of my mind, but I had never said anything to him. But right before he was deployed, I actually broke down to him and told him I never thought I would see him again. I was terrified that he was going to be killed and that I would just be alone in this world. And I remember he actually kind of asked me why I was thinking that, and I said, well, I'm the unlucky one of us twins, and if anything ever happens, it always happens to me. And he said, well, you're right, so I should be fine. And he just kind of chuckled it off, and that was the kind of encouragement and kind of balance he gave to me as a twin. So time went on. I think there was about a month or two before he was deployed, and then there was a few times as he was during his deployment where I broke down to my girlfriend at the time that I didn't think he was coming home. But most of the time, because he was deployed for, I think he was gone for about 6 months in Iraq, 7 months, and most of the time I was able to push that down. I was able to just distract myself, hang out with my friends, party, just kind of try to focus on the here and now, and not let the bad thoughts end, so to speak. But the day, I want to say the day before my twin brother was killed was actually our 20th birthday. I was in Seattle with some friends and family, just hanging out, having a good time, while my twin brother was in Iraq. And and the day came and went, and I say I wish my brother a happy birthday, through the universe. Unfortunately, we weren't able to talk that day, but I knew he knew how much I loved him, and I was missing him, and I was just ready to see him. And that was one of the really painful elements of my pain, was that my twin brother was, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks away from returning from his deployment. So August 3rd came along. It's the day after our birthday, and I just remember my older sister, she drove me to SeaTac Airport so I could fly back home. And I remember I got a phone call from my mom telling me that 14 Marines had been killed that morning. And I kind of gave her the same response I'd given her every time that she had told me that, just because, it's really hard to block out every time you hear a report of Marines killed, because my brother was a Marine. And I just remember saying, it was never him. It was never him in the past. It's not him now. He's fine. And not really giving it a second thought. And then I took a flight to Salt Lake City. And I remember getting a phone call from my mom again in Salt Lake City. And she called and said, asked what I was doing, when I was planning on getting home. And I told her that I was just going to hang out with some friends and my girlfriend and, just chill. And she was like, okay, well, can you come by the house before you go home? And I just remember thinking to myself, it's kind of weird. I mean, she didn't make a big thing about it. There was no emotion in her voice, but, she was going to ask me if I could stop by the house first. And I was like, that's kind of odd. I don't know why she would care if I saw her when I got home, or if I saw her a couple hours later or whatever, but, no big deal. So yeah, so I just kind of actually at that point started just kind of thinking what's going on, and I just kind of put my iPod in or my earbuds in and listened to some music on the flight and just kind of zoned it out. And then I remember getting my luggage when I flew into the local airport, and I just remember I went outside, and it was kind of funny. I live in a smaller town in Montana now. I grew up in Seattle, but I live in a smaller town right now, and so I just remember sitting on the bench outside Gallatin Field Airport, and I was the only person outside. And this was, like I said, back in 2005. So that actually was an absurd thing. It was kind of cool back then because you could just kind of be alone with yourself and not have the chaos of life around you. But I just remember I was sitting on the bench. I can't remember how many minutes I'd been sitting there. I was waiting to get picked up by my girlfriend, and I don't know what really stemmed it, but I just remember kind of being like, oh crap. I mean, obviously it wasn't that, but it was just, I remember thinking like, why does my mom want me to come home? And then it dawned on me. And for those of you who are twins or who know twins, you might have a little insight into this, but just to kind of give you an insight into my experience as a twin, there's definitely I want to say a telepathic connection that twins have, where we can communicate without communicating, so to speak, without actually saying words. There's a sense of existence where we know each other is okay, or if they're having a tough time, and so we're just emotionally connected. And that was the thing, was that at that moment I realized my brother had been killed. And I remember how to say sending out that twin signal, and he didn't respond, and I just broke down in tears because I knew that's why my mom wanted to talk to me. She was going to tell me my twin had been killed. And that's actually when my denial of my pain began, was the moment I realized he had been killed. Because I want to say a few minutes later, I can't really remember how many minutes passed, but a few minutes later, my girlfriend showed up with a few of her girlfriends, and as soon as they were pulling in, I just started wiping the tears away and just bottled it down and acted like nothing was going on. And I remember they were all like, do you want to go to lunch? And I was like, sure, because the last thing in the world I wanted to do was go home, because I knew what was waiting for me. And so we went to a local restaurant, and we got there, and we placed our orders, and then I got on a phone call from my mom. And I knew why she was calling, why she was being persistent, and she asked me if I could just leave real fast and come right back to lunch. She didn't go by the house. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. And again, I didn't make any indication to my girlfriend or friends that there was anything going on. Just was, hey, my mom, being a mom, she wants me to go by the house and drop my stuff off. I'll be right back. I just remember getting in that car, and the entire time, just kind of all those emotions of what I was driving to. It's one of those things where, it's really hard to be motivated to want to drive somewhere where you're going to get the worst news you've ever been given, that you ever could be given. And I remember we were pulling into my parents' house, and I saw my recruiter's wife's car in the driveway, and I think they were trying to be, I'd say, inconspicuous, because I'd only see it once, but I forget very little. It's a blessing and a curse. But I knew what was about to happen, and I just kept dragging my feet, so to speak. I got out of the car and popped the trunk and went and grabbed my bags. And as I was pulling my bags out and turned, I saw my twin brother and my Marine recruiter walking out to me, and that's when he told me Nick was killed this morning. And I remember just dropping to my knees, and it's just unbelievable pain. And yeah, that's when my pain began. That's when I didn't know if I'd ever be happy again. And the tough thing was that as time went on, as things were revealed to me, as everything took place, there was just so many things. You took a step back, and I felt, I think everybody who loses somebody probably feels it's excessively personal. They feel, why me? And not by no means was any exception, but there were so many different elements of why me. To this day, one of the things that just sticks in my face is that my twin brother and my birthday is the eve of my twin brother's death. And so, in and of itself, it would be extremely difficult to celebrate our birthday, just because it's a reminder he's not here to celebrate it with me. But just the fact that it's the eve of the day that destroyed me is just, there could have been so many other days that could have happened where that element wouldn't have brought me down. His death in and of itself would have brought me down, but that, it was just, salt on the wound. It was just unnecessary pain that I felt. And I was going to say, that was the other thing too, was that as time went on, I remember initially when there was reports and we were all just, again, we were shell shocked. We were still just kind of, I don't know. I remember the very next day after he was killed, I remember waking up and thinking it was a bad dream, and then having to go through those emotions again of realizing that no, this is my life. Hell is my life now. And that was very difficult. But as information came out and we found out details, because that was another painful element of my brother's death, was that my twin brother's entire squad was killed except for one Marine. And that's the thing too, is that I know he's been through hell and back, being that lone survivor. But from a personal standpoint of me, why that really just again added to that personal. I felt like I was the ant under the magnifying glass. Like there's a billion other ants you could have killed. Why me? Was that the lone survivor from my brother's squad? The reason he survived was there's another squad that needed radio, and my twin brother's squad had 2 Marines with radios. The nail in the coffin for me was that my twin brother was the other Marine. So knowing that he could have been spared and wasn't, again, just made it feel so personal and so, I'd say, unnecessary. And I know that that's something that torments the lone survivor of my brother's squad, is just that sense of guilt of surviving that. But yeah, so these are the things that make our pain up. It's not simply the loss of a certain person in our lives. It's what that loss meant. It's the gruesome details of that loss is where you really find what's killing you inside. Because you really can't heal something until you know it's broken, so to speak, or wounded. You know you're hurt because you lost somebody, and that's a natural thing. But the details of why it hurts and what about it hurts is really where you're going to find healing. And that was the thing, was that for so many years I thought that this was, how I put it was that my twin brother was by far the most close relationship I've ever had. And if I could lose him, I could lose anyone. And another really painful element was the fact that, like I said, I had a premonition that he had been killed. I felt his death before he left. I felt it when he was gone. And then I felt it before I was told. And so every time I have a worry, every time I have some sort of circumstances where, I'm getting a random bunch of phone calls from family members, I just think, who in my family has died? What's happened? What's going on? What pain is about to strike me? And it's just, that's a very destructive way to look at life, but also at the same time, somewhat justifiable. But like I said, that's the thing, is that I think it's okay to allow yourself to have those irrational worries for a little while. But where I went wrong was I let it drag on for years and years and years until I didn't know how to get back to happiness. I forgot what that felt like. I forgot just what that natural sense of being in the present now and not really thinking about the coming storms that may be. And so, yeah, that's just something that I really want people to be able to do, but it's important too to also have support and be in the right situations. You don't want to do that right before you go to work. You don't want to do that, right before a get together. You don't want to immerse yourself in your pain before. You got to be focused and in the present, because that's the last place you're going to want to be when you're looking at your pain deep and close. And that was one of the things, like I said, was that, especially the first few years, I didn't learn a whole lot about my pain. I mean, I learned new painful details about it, but I didn't find any truths. I didn't find anything that gave my heart peace. I was told, and I understand to a certain degree that whole concept of they'd want you to be happy. And I'm like, well, I know they want me to be happy. That just makes me more sad because I can't be happy. I feel like I'm disappointing them because I can't be happy. And so it's not that sentiment isn't there. That it's not that comment is this hateful thing. It's meant to be encouraging, but that's where I want to come in and talk about how, even if you watch my videos, even if you've been watching, there's a point where I've made so many videos and you've watched all this and you're not better. That doesn't mean that you're hopeless or that there's no positive effects taken. It's just that it's just really one of those things where you really just got to take it a day at a time, a step at a time. Just try. If you spend 6 hours of your days wallowing in pain, try to reduce it to 4. It's something like that. Legitimately, will get you a long ways after time. And that's one of the things that I learned years after my brother was killed. Was I actually learned a lot of very healing truths, and a lot of it had to do with just how I looked at my pain. It really was that just. I just kept looking at it, for example, like that I was going without my brother, that I had lost my brother, that I couldn't go on without my brother. And I never thought about, what I want my brother to be going through. And there's certain things where I just simply looked at my pain and I looked at the other side of my pain, and that other side, it really freed me from my pain. Not completely by any means. But just one example was that for years and years I wanted to be the sacrificial lamb for my brother's sake. I didn't want him to have died. I wanted myself to have died, and he could have lived a happy life. And that was one thing, though, was I realized, as sad as it might sound, was I just remember all the pain I went through and all the damage that his death caused in my family, with my siblings and my parents. And I just thought, I want him here for me. I don't want him here for him. I wouldn't want my twin brother to know the pain that I saw that would happen with one of our absences. And so it's just those truths where it's not that there's anything wrong with allowing yourself to dwell on your pain and just look at the totality of it and how it impacted you, but also at the same hand, I'd also realized that the loved ones we lose, yes, their lives are cut short, but they don't have to hurt anymore. They are truly freed from that pain. It is us who have to carry that pain. And once I realized that I was carrying that burden and he didn't have to, it was much more of, I felt like I had sacrificed my life in a way so that he could be at peace. But yeah, so we're going to stop right there. But there's so much to talk about, but I just need to keep at it. And, I thank for everyone for their support. And I really hope that I can be a help for people. And yes, good luck and good night.